And we have some breaking news from Major League Baseball. Carlos Correa and the Twins have agreed to a 6-year, $200 million contract that has been confirmed by our MLB insider, Jim Bowden. Now, this could mean the end to a weeks-long saga that saw the free agent shortstop agree to long-term deals worth over $300 million with the Giants and Mets, only to see both fall apart because of medical concerns over his lower right leg. Now, this agreement with Minnesota is also pending a physical. Correa played for the Twins this past season before opting out of his contract to become a free agent. All right, let's welcome in our MLB insider, David Samson, to talk about this ongoing saga with Carlos Correa. David, I know you talked about it on your podcast today. Just seems like it's been never ending. So many twists and turns. There's been 3 teams in the last month that have been in this conversation. When you're hearing about this new deal with Correa and the Twins, what are you thinking when you hear this news?
Well, my first thought is, how much money is a possible left leg or right leg injury worth? When Correa signed with the Giants, it was a huge deal. Remember, they had just come off not getting Aaron Judge. They thought they had gotten a huge impact signing, even though they already had a shortstop. But all of that said, they go to the physical. He fails the physical, and Scott Boras says, I'm not going to renegotiate with you. No problem. I'm going to call Steve Cohen in Hawaii. Boras calls Steve Cohen, and they get a deal done immediately, and he loses a year from 13 to 12. He loses $35 million from 350 to 315, but there's the physical. And it's been about 17 days since the Mai Tai, and nothing happened. What you saw in the last few days was Scott Boras getting a little worried, saying, I better see if I can find another team. He goes back to the Minnesota Twins, who have been waiting in the wings, trying to see if they can get him for way less than what they thought was market value. And it turns out that Boras and Correa did not want to wait for the Mets anymore. They did not want to renegotiate with Steve Cohen, and Steve Cohen held his ground, and the player he really wanted is now back with the Twins, where he signed last offseason to a 3-year deal. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, and David, just really quickly, this is, of course, pending another physical. Say this physical doesn't turn out like Correa wants, this deal goes south. What does he do next in that situation?
Well, you just keep lowering the term of the years, right? So it went from 13 to 12, now down to 6. I think you're going to see it continue to go down, much like last offseason when he took a 3-year deal for $102 million with an opt-out after the first year. When you are worried about a player's long-term health, generally, if you're Steve Cohen, you don't worry about it. Like when the Angels signed Pujols or the Mariners signed Cano, you don't worry about the back end. And you've seen a lot of that this offseason with teams not worried about the back end. But for whatever reason with Correa, in addition to age and length, they're worried about an existing injury that could crop up again. And Scott Boras did not want to give any teams protection. So will Minnesota fail him and he will fail a third physical? I think not. I think he ends up right where he is now on the Twins.
And David, also, the Mets have had just a great offseason. Brandon Nimmo, Verlander. Does this put any sort of damper for Mets fans for the upcoming season for them?
One thing that we always told our owner is when we have a signing that leaks, please don't get out ahead of it. Please don't say we have to have the player or we really need this trade to happen or we need this signing to happen, because until he's added to your roster, anything can happen. And Steve Cohen said something strange. He said, this was the piece that would put us over the top. That's how irrationally exuberant he was about the Correa signing. So now that he doesn't get Correa, all of a sudden you have a fan base, you have a clubhouse, all wondering, well, wait a minute, I guess maybe we're not over the top. So now we have to spend more money. But let's make sure we talk about the impact of the Correa signing when it was first announced to the Mets. And all the owners were very unhappy that Steve Cohen's payroll was going to be, including tax, about $500 million. There is pressure on Cohen to get that payroll down, and that was a factor here. It's not going to be talked about. It's going to be denied by everyone. But I promise you that the commissioner has a high incentive to keep owners from fighting, and Steve Cohen running away with that top payroll, creating such a huge difference between the haves and the have-nots, was an issue for owners that Rob did not want any part of. So this is a big deal that he is leaving the Mets, and I don't think the Mets are going to go ahead and overpay on somebody else, but we have a 1-year respite because next year it's Shohei Ohtani.
And David, one final question, bringing it back to Correa and his health. Why is it okay now and not before? Do you think that he is healthy enough right now to get this deal done with the Twins?
Well, again, when you're talking about a shorter term deal, you're not as worried about something that can impact you long term. Carlos Correa has not missed time because of this lower leg injury. He did complain about it at the end of last season when he felt a vibration while sliding into a base. I think there was just a fear for teams to go that far out with him because as you get older, an injury can reoccur. But the real issue that I'm thinking about is how important it was for the Mets not to sign Correa on behalf of the league and how important it was for the Mets to sign Correa on behalf of the Mets. So there was a little bit of tension there, and it looks like the league and the owners prevailed.
All right, that is our MLB insider, David Samson, joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Thank you so much, David. We appreciate it. If you're just joining us, we are following some breaking news from Major League Baseball, where Carlos Correa and the Twins have agreed to a 6-year, $200 million contract pending a physical. Of course, you can also hear David on his podcast, Nothing Personal. You can download and listen wherever you get your podcasts, and they dive into this topic on the very latest episode. You can also scan that QR code on your screen.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.